Ivan said, look doctor, didn't you ask Venezuela for warships to help we in this empty mutiny? From Barrow aluminum, Burnham feeding we with rice, yet you calling him a blind mice. Eric said, let Burnham keep he rice. I've got oil, they will have to pay my price. Oil don't spoil, three of them, three blind mice. Don't you know? Burnham, I treat them like if they were my wife. I give.
This is Caribbean.
Them three mice do not know is I have them on the toe. Food for them to be fed. Without me all of them dead. Is my people have to toil to give them pitch and oil, yet they back in Venezuela and don't want my land to smell. They remind me of them three blind mice. Don't you know, manly Burnham Barrow? They go beg me again for what I have. If I lie, ask Smiley. Both of us met Manly, traveling from St. Lucia. We met him in Grenada. I told him what the doc say. Manly blurt out right away, tell Eric he has not died, for he has blind men at his side. Manly say, them three deputies that he have is the oil. Three spineless men of straw have been spoiled. Three of them come like three blind. Manly call Kamal Chambers error. Anything the doc say is right for them. The three of them are really yes men. Did you ever see such rats-tail men in your life as them three blind men? Ask Kamal about the bacchanal down at the convention when Ivan asked Williams, Doc, why Venezuela don't want we to smelt her? Doctor, can you tell me? I've got oil. Let Barrow kiss me tail. Oil don't spoil. Three of them come like three blind mice. Don't you know, manly Burnham Barrow? They're running bout only setting strife, cutting their tails with Venezuela's knife. Did you ever see such jackasses in your life as them three blind mice? Ivan said, look doctor, didn't you ask Venice for warships to help we in this empty mutiny? From Barrow we get rum, from Manly aluminum, Burnham feeding we with rice, yet you calling him a blind mice. Eric said, let Burnham keep the rice, I've got oil. They will have to pay my price. Oil don't spoil. 3 of them come like 3 blind mice. Don't you know? Don't harm our own. I treat them like if they were my wife. I give them money like peas by Christ. But it's my own throat they're trying to slice. Them 3 blind mice. So true. Goodbye.
This is Caribbean.
Them do not know is I have them on the toe.
Try with a federation, the whole thing end in confusion. Caricom and then carifter, but somehow a spelling disaster. Mr. West Indian politician, I mean you went to a big institution, and how come you can't unite 7 million? When a West Indian unit, and tell them like me, them is one race, the Caribbean man, from the same place, the Caribbean man, that make the same trip, the Caribbean man, on the same ship. You say that the Federation was imported quite from England, and you're going on for a carifter with a true West Indian flavor. But since Karuna night all are hearing, it's just money speech them Prime Minister giving. But I say no set of money could form a unity. First of all your people need an intention is for a better life in the region, for we woman and we children. That must be the ambition of the Caribbean man, the Caribbean man, the Caribbean man. Caricom is wasting time, the whole Caribbean gone blind. If we don't know from where we come in, then we can't plan where we go in. That's why some want to be communist, brother some want to be socialist, and one set a religion to add to the foolishness. Look a man who don't know his history, can't form no unity. How could a man who don't know his roots form his own ideology? Like one race, from the same place, that make the same trip on the same.
If you happen to see and know when politics going wrong, with facts and figures prepared to show, it's better to bite your tongue. To them political boss, who the people trust and get double cross, you're an obstacle to be removed at any cost. Oh, that conscience is really very dangerous to your health. The awesome strength of the powers that be most certainly will be felt. To tell them that the priorities and performances on the par. It's poetic to hear them describe to you who you are. First of all, you're a megalomaniac, a power seeker, a crazy or a crack, troublemaker. And if you tell them that the economy is no longer in full bloom, then you become a prophet of doom and gloom.
They call me the witch doctor from a land afar, specializing in obia. The real name is Papa Bois. When the drums begin to play and I ring me daddy way, I can't see me spell. Roger, come and run
Yes, indeed, of course. Pleasant good night to all and sundry. You caught me napping there. Yes, I was simply enjoying the lyrics of those pieces. And, of course, it would have indicated where I'm coming from tonight, which is, of course, that elusive, what I consider to be unity. But, of course, the position of Trinidad and Tobago today in the context of a united Caribbean, a united former British colonies, a part of the Commonwealth of Nations, and whether or not as a Trinbagonian we can feel comforted or comfortable that the future has prospects, particularly in the context of the type of leadership that we are experiencing existentially at the present time. And so it is important to understand that. And of course, Chuck Duss's presentation, which I'm going to, of course, play a little bit for those of you who just joined, but don't forget, of course, share, like, and of course make certain that you're all and sundry as we of course move inexorably to the next phase of this new disposition or dispensation, when we are going to be communicating, of course, with the international, or should I say the leaders, the major leaders of the world, as to what is happening in Trinidad and Tobago, purporting to be government and governance in a democracy, but every opportunity is being taken to undermine our democracy. We saw, of course, another display of that kind of unrelenting but very brutal and self-serving, politically and otherwise narrow and, of course, despicable. When Rowley went to Tobago, couldn't even invoke a laugh, and of course the applause were so sparse, similar to how the room itself was sparsely populated with a over preponderance of what I consider to be a septuagenarian and octogenarians, a person in their 80s and in their 70s, and that demonstrates how obsolete and how Jurassic is the PNM under this particular leader. And remind you, as the leader was talking to them, and he was literally making some what he considered to be key points, and yet still one could conclude that he was actually applauding himself as he attempted, of course, over and over to get some kind of crowd, or should I say the audience response, and nothing of the sort for him. I suppose it's similar to what he experienced in at the early stages of the local government elections campaign of the PNM in Woodbrook, when they told him in non-certain terms, you does lie. PNM telling Rowley that he does lie, so much so, and he has been so distraught and so probably incensed, if not amazed, by that response, that of course he converted his elections after that to, of course, a discussion with the Prime Minister in the midst of an election, whether it's local or national. There's no place for that, but it demonstrates the trauma and the what I consider to be the meteoric and monolithic disaster psychologically, and the impact that it would have had on him, that he never expected in a PNM setting to be, of course, rejected in the way that the crowd did in St. James in the local government election. So we know that as far as the days are numbered for the PNM is concerned, that is a good sign. In terms of course, having to actually jettison them by way of an election, they still have the card or the trump card in their hands, and therefore we must relentlessly and to an inexorable degree insist that he calls an early election, preferably tomorrow, as to wait until 2025. I see that people like Hines and they are hoping for a 2025 call because he wants to stay as long as possible, totally unaware, totally incompetent, totally unable to deliver the task that is required, knowing full well that the people are conscious that he is a quack, an indolent, and of course an intellectually, of course, a depraved individual who of course will unashamedly project himself as some kind of individual who is deserving of the position that was handed to him. Something similar. Let's go straight to the line. Pleasant good night. Welcome to the corridor. Pleasant good night. Pleasant good night. Welcome to the corridor. All right, we missed that one. Let me just make sure everything is up and running. All right, we missed that one. Let me just make sure on this system here we have everything up and running. It seems as though I'm locked out of the other computer. All right, good. Right. Let me just make sure that the phone line is up and yes, indeed, of course. Yeah, it's up and running. Let me just take off the one on the other side so that we are clear. Let me just reboot the mouse, the system, apply, close. Right, let me get across here. Right, good. Let me just give myself a viewing of what is happening online at this stage. Yes, indeed. But I was making the point. Yes, good. I was making the point that people like Hines and they, who are short in more ways than one, but of course, a fellow like Hines, anything to, I don't know, it cannot be that he wants to augment his resume. I suppose it's to get an unfair, or should I say, an undeserving access to fame, fortune, yes, influence, and walking the corridors of power. I think that has to be the motivation here. Has to be the motivation. And of course, it is nestled and it is reinforced by Hines, a big hardback, over 50 years of age man, to be the youth arm chairman of the PNM, and he accepted it. Because Hines clearly was prepared to grovel and to take anything. It doesn't matter what comes his way. At that level of putrid, that level of insult can only be accepted and absorbed by someone who, as my mother would say, is a dog sucking egg. There are no shame, and they will go back and look for more, even though they would have been beaten, flagellated, to stop that conduct, to stop that habit, but they will continue. Well, that is Hines. He's a sucker for Rowley punishment, and he tried that nonsense with me some time ago, trying to get fame off of Dr. Barbara Gray Burke, Archbishop, head of the Shouter Baptist Elders of Trinidad and Tobago. He tried that. He, Hines. But when he was, of course, at the opening of the first set of, or handed out of the first set of keys for the Las Alturas apartments in Mova. You see, just before Rowley came and as Minister of Housing, as Bishop Burke and myself jointly indicating that we are extremely concerned that here it is, the Las Alturas apartments were being constructed and not a contractor from Mova or Laventille. And worse yet, just one watchman got employment at all from among the availability of employment opportunities there. And we said in our conclusion of that letter, jointly of course, that listen, if you do not amend, you do not upgrade or be more realistic in terms of your policies and programs in the construction of these apartments under the auspices of the Ministry of Housing, you being the minister, you will be fomenting further crime and criminality and making the Laventille community believe that they are third-class citizens and that young people will gravitate to gang and borderline issues that was of course rearing its head at the time. And therefore it behoves on Dr. Rowley as the Minister of Housing at the time and coming into Laventille to hand out keys that we as responsible community activists and advocates bring it to his attention should in case the then sitting parliamentary representative Hines for Laventille East Mova at the time did not do it. You know, Rowley in his speech while she was handing over and handing out those keys, it said that we threatened him, both as Bishop Burke and myself threatened him because we asked him to be just, reasonable and considerate and to provide some kind of employment opportunities for idle contractors who could have gotten subcontract on the project and in itself generating employment opportunities for people just around the vicinity of the project itself, the housing project, Las Alturas I'm talking about. Yes, the same one that was subjected to a commission of inquiry when a whole block just slipped away and was undermined by, of course, the surrounding earth. That's the same one. But the point I am making is that Hines has always been a derelict as far as public duty and commitment and dedication to constituents, having regard to his public office and the many opportunities that he would have gotten, but at the same time he would have been seen as a floor cloth, as the man to go to for any groveling work that the PNM will provide. And that is why, of course, I'm sure Manning had disrespected him and dismissed him from the cabinet. He became, of course, at one, not cabinet, but from his various portfolios that he would have had. At one time, he became, of course, a political vagrant, and he was all over Laventille, looking, of course, to try to salvage some dignity and pride. And, of course, even when he was brought back by Rowley, his constituents in the Beatham run him, chase him under some heavy, I'm sure, infested water. Yes, infested water, dirty water, as my mother would say, cocoa water. Yes, and yet still, that is the man who today is, of course, National Security Minister. I heard Hines some time ago, in his vain attempt, of course, to try to sully and to malign, and which is, of course, vindictive, and as well as his vitriolic, and of course, excoriating verbalization with the accompanying, of course, body language and facial ugly expressions. Yes, the man could play bite to bite with an alligator in a competition and win. That is the level at which he is. And in Laverton, of course, he is called the peacock, and not for any what I consider to be pulchritudinous reasons, nothing for beauty, in other words, but because he's plenty flair but no depth, totally incompetent, impotent, and an absolute charlatan, a quack. And I am not surprised that Rowley, having regard to what we know now, will have such an individual around him, and that he doesn't see it fit to get rid of him, having regard to the public and multiple and frequent faux pas, disgrace, and of course a totally inimical to the interests of Trinidad and Tobago and the public of Trinidad and Tobago. They together are the existential threat to the democracy of Trinidad and Tobago. I cannot overemphasize, nor would I stop so doing. They are the threat to our democracy, and that is why we have to create programs like these, and we have, of course, to get our people aware and conscious. And that is why I cannot either halt my beseechment and my admonition and my attempts to ask of you to share, family, friends, enemies, etc., as we go to the next stage of this expansion agenda to expose what this government, that is a pretense of a government, a total and absolute criminal enterprise, engage in mafia style operations and do things in their own interests, but projecting somehow that it is in the public's interests. But we see that level of nepotism and cronyism under the guise of what? Of political patronage, which is part and parcel of the democratic process. You see it in the United States, if you want to consider them the mecca of democracy. When an administration comes into office, it comes, of course, with its people, because the principle is clear. It is only your people know your policy, and only your people you can trust. But more importantly, at the end of the day, based on your manifesto promise, and let me emphasize, based on your manifesto promise or promises, it is assumed by that magnanimous disposition as far as democracy is concerned, to allow a certain degree of political patronage, putting people in political offices in order to execute your agenda, because it will be you that the electorate will call upon, consequential of their evaluation of your performance over the period of time that you would have been in office, usually 5 years in the case of the national elections, and you will be made to account. Stewardship must be given every opportunity to succeed. Unfortunately, from day one, this administration on the basis of their manifesto alone and major aspects of it, whether it be property tax, that they said that it is a dastard, a wicked, debilitating act by the leader himself and his sometimes replacement when he's out of the country. I'm talking about Innsbruck. Whether it be the non-interference of subsidies that they have of course interfered with, not once, not twice, and then tell us that we in riot yet. A pleasant good night. Welcome to the corridor. Welcome to the corridor, my friend.
Lennox,
Hey.
a pleasant good night to you. Good night to you and to everybody on the chat. Lennox, every time, you must know when elections are in the air.
Yes.
Every time the PNM right the back of Eric Williams. We saw it in 2015. They tried to resurrect him. Now they want to name the airport after him. But I find instead of naming it after Eric Williams, they should name it Williams all around. The two biggest corruption sports ever this country.
Disgrace the country and disgrace public
Why
office.
there are
Yes.
so many people? Yeah, go ahead.
No, I say disgrace
There's so
the
many
public
people
interest.
that
Yeah.
they can bring that airport after. They can name it after, they could name it after Eric Williams. Well, he was so good. What did he do for this country? They didn't want to name the Cougar Children's Hospital after Kamala. No, they didn't. The last time they went up the library, and it was people who did it. That does those did after Eric Williams. You know, there's a group that pushed his agenda, and then Rowley jumped in the fray. Every time, see that coffee for them.
You're coming across. You're coming across broken.
I put it on record here tonight.
Good.
It was never my. Am I breaking up?
Yeah, you're breaking up. Yes, you're breaking up. So talk a little, probably softer, and we'll see how it goes.
Are you hearing me?
Yeah, go ahead now. Yes.
That's why you will tell me like that.
Okay.
Yeah, Lennox. Yeah, every time there's an election in the year, you would swear that this so good. What did Eric Williams do for the nation, Lennox? Can somebody tell me? And they want to refer to my father in the nation. It was not my father. I had a father. It's only those who didn't know who their father were calling him the father. But this is real stupidity. Anyway, we like it so. They could rename the whole country after Eric Williams. And really don't bother me. Because this is just a whole lot of corruption that's going on in this place. Lennox, because of the fact that the life is cutting us so much, I'll keep it short tonight.
Yes.
Take care, have a good night.
Appreciate your consideration because we don't want, of course, to lament to such a degree that, of course, we frustrate, of course, those persons who are already have, and it's inconsistency. Let me put it that way. But that being as it may, the last caller, Miss Santa Cruz, our external, raised a very good point, and that is these people will resurrect a Kobo in order to stay in office to do us evil. That he didn't want anything in his name, etc., etc. Of course, he could have been something like Rowley. Rowley didn't like the job, but he'll leave it at all. It's as though not just glue, but it's like if he is steel, and of course Trinidad and Tobago government or the apparatus is also steel, and they are welded together. They are inseparable. He don't want to go at all. And having regard to what he said in Tobago, is a man that is not only conflicted, confused, in a state of discombobulation and in a state of total enigma and desperation. That's the only show, because when they start to sweat, as we saw Manning, we know that they are in trouble. So of course he was in Tobago and was the most entertainment one can look at when you are of course nourished, when you are saturated, and I like to use it when you are pregnant with of course the knowledge as to your foe or the individual who is making that level of pretense much more vivid in his public utterances. So he goes to Tobago, yes, apart from what I said on the ground report this morning, because it was most hilarious, and we need to, of course, expose that, because we've been there, done that. We saw it, and we, of course, know what he's capable of, and therefore his modus operandi is clear. His method of operation is clear. So he goes there, can't get a laugh. Nobody seems to want to. And he's talking, of course, to very senior citizens, hang-ons, you could call them, if you who could do more with less. Again, all wine in new bottle. The audience is a new one, or the time is a new one, but the rhetoric, the old talk, the hogwash, the diatribe. The only problem is that when he says that in Tobago, he somehow believed that it wouldn't echo in Trinidad. So he says that there. And of course, I have always said the man is such a buffoon and such an opportunist, and clearly he doesn't know what he wanted to say at the time of his policies, programs and rollouts, because he said that here in Trinidad already. He told us for the 2015 elections that he could do more with less. You know, he goes to Tobago and says the same thing, and from that perspective one can argue that he's consistent. But when confronted people with the monies that was negotiated at the ending of the Kamla Prasad Bisesa administration in 2015, and public servants had to get about $4 billion in back pay as of course for what was negotiated by their representative union. He was hopping and skipping and of course engaging of course in all kind of hate talk and all kinds of threats. And he said then, in fact, I will bring it tomorrow. I'll bring it tomorrow night. Don't tell me that. I ain't lying on the man. When he was confronted early in his administration around 2016-17, wanting the workers wanting to get their monies, not only did he tell them that you can't do more with less, but he went on to tell them that you may get the money and lose your job. I'm sure you remember that. It's in that same vein. He told them that you cannot get more from less, and that if we give you the money, you may lose your job. That is what he told public servants then. You know, he goes to Tobago now, skip over that like in a state of what I consider to be psychological retrogression or psychological nostalgia. Yeah, thinking of the past. He then goes to the PNM could do more with less. The PNM could do more with less, and therefore he only waiting for Fali and them to make the mistake so that they could move here to take over. That is what he went there wishing. And knowing where he is and knowing that he's from there, he was a bit, I should say, tempered. He wasn't as brutal and as acrid and of the level of what I consider to be irascibility that he would normally display in Trinidad, because he's careful, saying at the same time he had to come back there and live and all his investment is there, as if as if somebody cares. The fact is that you made your investment and you could tomorrow choose what you want to eat, meal if at all for the day, but you boasting except to get the hell out of office by simply calling an election. That's all. We don't want any kind of self-praise or etc., because we know all of it. Looking at your public conduct would have been recent and up to the PNM, and in particular when you became Prime Minister. Let's not waste time with that. Nobody, he was persona non grata, or he was so insignificant. The event was so insignificant that memory could not have find out whether he tested the election in Tobago for the PNM.